years or 15 years from now, when we look back at what we call energy efficiency today, what we do today will look very primitive compared to what we will be doing then. We view ourselves as a leader in developing and deploying new technologies. We view ourselves as a solution provider. We view ourselves as the real value we will add is in optimization. Because while I told you a few moments ago that the real price of electricity has been flat for the last 50 years, when I look at the federal mandates coming down in terms of environmental regulations, when I look at the need to retire and replace all our plants, I will tell you today that the real price of electricity is going to rise for the next 20 to 30 years. That's just another nice way of saying that there's going to be significant price increases coming over future years as we modernize our grid, we replace our plants, and we carry out the federal mandates that are coming our way. So that's what's in front of us coming forward. One other point I would make is that one of the things that makes electricity a unique and valuable asset for our country is that we can make electricity 5 or 6 different ways. One of the problems that the auto industry got in trouble with is they're dependent only on one fuel, oil. I never want to get to a place where I'm dependent on one. I want to keep all of them in the equation. I want coal to be there in the low carbon world. I want nuclear to be there. I want solar and wind to be there. I want natural gas to be there. All of these technologies, regardless of what you hear from anybody else, I will tell you all these technologies need further advances in their technologies to be able to be an equal contributor in a low carbon world. It's got to happen. We need to improve the technologies that we have today. It would be dangerous for us to rely only on one fuel going forward. And I guess I would say to you, because I want to leave plenty of time for questions, a couple things, and I'm going to skip over a few points because I want to really leave you with 2 key things. I'm a CEO, I'm an optimist. You don't survive as long as I have without being an optimist. I believe in the possibilities of the future. I have 8 grandchildren, and I have what I call the grandchildren's test. I look out and I believe the decisions I make today, I hope, pass the grandchildren's test. That when my grandchildren get my age, they look back at me and they say, my granddaddy made decisions that were good about the economy, about energy, and about the environment, and those decisions are still good today. That's the test that I really want to pass. Sure, I'll do the earnings test, and I'll keep my rates affordable and reliable and clean, our service. But the fact of the matter is the grandchildren's test for all of us. Whatever we do is the real test because it's really about the legacy. But as I talk about being an optimist, I want to leave 2 quick points with you. And I thought about this morning. I have difficulty reading my writing, so I'll make sure I can read it. And I want to be a little provocative with you, and because I know there's a panel coming on after me, and I want to be not just provocative, but to create a little debate. As I told you a few moments ago, our Duke sales will not reach the 07 level into 2015. There's been a huge loss to the manufacturing base in our country. There used to be a correlation between the growth of electricity and the growth of GDP. It was a 1-to-1. Today, it's 0.5 to 1. And that's because we've lost the manufacturing base. And you can go back to the 80s, and every time we had a recession, we saw a drop-off in manufacturing and it plateaued, drop off manufacturing, and it's dropped off again. And actually, the two economies that have rebounded the fastest have been Germany and China, because they have nurtured their manufacturers and the manufacturing base. So if Kentucky is going to be strong in the 21st century, we have to have a strategy, a policy, almost an industrial policy. We need a nationwide policy, but at least a statewide policy to really create a manufacturing base in our country. Unemployment, as I said, is going to be 9 to 10% for the next 5 years, I believe. Unfortunately, I hope it's not true. And we're going to have a very anemic recovery. So it's in that context we have to do our transformation. And doing the kind of transformation that translates into higher prices for consumers, even though it's 1.9% of the disposable income, is going to be very difficult to do. I understand that. But what I'm worried about, not just the economy, I'm really worried about the role of coal in the next 10 years. As I said to you, 50% of electricity in this country comes from coal. In the past 15 years, 85% of the new power plants built in this country have been fired by natural gas. My prediction is, in the next 10 years plus, 85% of the new plants will be gas. So we will have gone a quarter of a century where we have built predominantly one type of power plant, natural gas, and that our dependency on gas to generate electricity will rise to 40%. Recent MIT study predicted that would be the reality of what's coming. And you say, well, why the next 10 years? Well, we have uncertainties with respect to what the regulations are going to be on coal plants. We haven't come up with the technology to capture carbon from coal yet, although CCS is promising. And I think there's going to be the two plants that we built. If we tried to build those two plants today, the opposition would be huge, and those plants would not get built, even though they'll be the cleanest coal plants in the country. And I think the uncertainty as to the environmental regulations, uncertainty in terms of carbon, is going to make it difficult for companies like ours to build new coal plants going forward. And then there's the availability of shale gas. In 2007, when the Energy Information Agency looked at the reserves of natural gas in the United States, they didn't have shale gas in there. And today, in 8 and 9, they now have 600 TCF of shale gas. And the gas price today is $4.50, and actually we're seeing ourselves dispatch our gas units before what historically has been our cheapest source of power, our coal plants, with gas prices that low. Now there's open questions about shale because of the fracturing process, the use of water, the environmental issues associated with developing shale gas. And I started my corporate career in the gas industry. So I understand the gas industry very well and the volatility in price. I remember in '78 when we passed a law that made it illegal to burn gas to generate electricity. And that was the law of the land to '85. But nonetheless, I see natural gas coming up. But I see one other thing that I believe that supports my view that coal could be going through, at least in the next 10 to 15 years, the valley of death. And that is America. We have 330,000 megawatts of coal plants. We're going to retire 1/4 to 1/3 of our existing fleet by 2020. And for our company, that's roughly 5,000 megawatts. And the 1,400 megawatts that we're building now, we've already committed to retiring roughly that amount. These are plants that are 60 years old. We've never retrofitted for SOx or NOx or any other pollutants because they're just too old. It doesn't make economic sense. And so we're building new coal plants to be able to retire the old ones. So in a sense, I can envision the demand for coal will not grow during this period, will actually decline in the U.S.